There's a passage in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations that cuts right to the core of what it means to pursue greatness. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That unshakable clarity, that relentless focus on what you can control, it's the foundation of every transformative journey. But here's the truth most people miss. Ambition without discipline is just noise. The Stoics didn't just preach about resilience, they built systems for it. And that's exactly what we're uncovering today: 30 concrete methods, forged in ancient wisdom but designed for modern ambition. Whether you're rebuilding after a setback, leveling up your discipline, or commanding results in chaos, these practices aren't philosophy for the page. They're tools for the trenches, so if you're ready to stop wishing for change and start engineering it, let's begin. Picture this: you're stuck in traffic, late for an important meeting, and your phone just buzzed with another urgent email. Your heart races, frustration builds, but here's the question that changes everything. What part of this chaos actually belongs to you? That's the heart of the first Stoic method, the Dichotomy of Control, a concept Epictetus framed with brutal clarity. Some things are within our power while others are not. Your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, those are yours. The traffic, the delayed flight, the opinions of others, not yours. The power lies in the separation. Modern life bombards us with stressors, a micromanaging boss, a volatile market, even the weather. But Stoicism doesn't just teach acceptance, it hands you a filter. Next time tension rises, pause, grab a pen and split your worries into 2 columns, what I control and what I don't. You'll quickly see how much energy we waste on the wrong column. As Epictetus put it, happiness and freedom begin with one principle: some things are up to us and some are not. Your ambition grows not by battling external storms, but by mastering the ship in your hands. Seneca had a habit that might sound counterintuitive at first. He deliberately pictured the worst-case scenarios. Not out of pessimism, but preparation. He called it Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Think of it like a mental fire drill. Instead of hoping everything goes smoothly, you ask, what if today throws its hardest challenge at me? How would I respond? This isn't about dwelling on fear, it's about dissolving its power. When you rehearse adversity in your mind, you strip away the element of surprise, and that's where real resilience begins. Consider the Roman general Scipio Africanus, who faced Hannibal's armies in the Punic Wars. Before battle, he wouldn't just visualize victory. He'd walk through every possible disaster: ambushes, supply shortages, betrayal. By the time the fighting started, nothing rattled him. He'd already lived it in his mind. That's the Stoic edge. Modern psychology backs this up too. Studies show that people who mentally prepare for setbacks recover faster and adapt better. So here's the question to carry with you. What's the one challenge you're avoiding thinking about? Maybe it's a career risk, a difficult conversation, or even a personal habit you've been neglecting. Spend 5 minutes today turning it over in your mind, not as a threat, but as a drill, because the obstacle you rehearse is the one you'll eventually master. Long before Nietzsche coined the term Amor Fati, this radical love of fate, Marcus Aurelius was already living it. In his private journals, he wrote lines like this: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the essence of this third Stoic method. Not just enduring what life throws at you, but embracing it like a hidden ally. Think of it like strength training. When you lift weights, the resistance isn't the enemy, it's the exact thing that builds your muscles. Yet in daily life, we treat obstacles like intruders, kicking against delays, setbacks, even criticism. But what if you shifted perspective? A missed promotion could be the nudge toward entrepreneurship. A rejected proposal might force you to refine your best idea. Marcus put it bluntly, our actions may be hindered, but there can be no hindrance to our intentions or dispositions. Here's the challenge. Pick one frustration from this week, a traffic jam, a last-minute cancellation, a harsh comment, and ask, how could this actually serve me? Maybe the delay gave you time to think. The criticism highlighted a blind spot. The Stoics didn't preach passive resignation. They practiced alchemy, turning leaden moments into gold. Your toughest obstacle today might just be the raw material for tomorrow's strength. The Roman philosopher Musonius Rufus had a rule that would make most people uncomfortable, quite literally. He insisted that regularly seeking out hardship wasn't just useful but necessary. His reasoning, deliberate discomfort is the gym where resilience gets built. Think about that for a moment. In a world obsessed with convenience, where food arrives with a tap, entertainment never stops, and comfort is just a thermostat adjustment away, we've forgotten something crucial: ease erodes ambition. This isn't about suffering for its own sake. It's about conditioning your mind the way an athlete trains their body. The Stoics practiced it through fasting, sleeping on hard surfaces, or wearing thin cloaks in winter. Today, that might look like taking cold showers, fasting until noon, or walking instead of driving when possible. The goal isn't punishment, it's preparation. When you voluntarily face small discomforts, the big ones lose their sting. Here's the truth most avoid: comfort zones shrink over time. Each time you choose the elevator over stairs, distraction over focus, or convenience over effort, you're not just making a harmless choice, you're weakening your ability to handle life's inevitable storms. So here's a challenge. Pick one voluntary hardship this week. Skip the snooze button. Turn your shower cold for 30 seconds. Say no to the snack you don't need. Musonius put it bluntly, how can you expect to endure real adversity if you've never practiced? The best part, you'll discover what every Stoic knew: discomfort isn't your enemy. It's the teacher you've been avoiding. Marcus Aurelius had a practice he called taking the view from above, a mental exercise where he'd imagine looking down at the earth from the heavens, watching the bustling cities, the wars, the celebrations, all reduced to tiny specks. It wasn't about detachment, it was about clarity. When you zoom out like that, the things that felt urgent, the rude email, the delayed flight, the petty argument, suddenly seem absurdly small. Consider this: the Roman Empire, which once felt like the center of the universe, is now ruins we visit on vacation. The senators who argued passionately over laws we can't even remember. The merchants who stressed over deals that history erased. And yet, here we are losing sleep over an algorithm's approval or a stranger's opinion online. The Stoics weren't saying these things don't matter at all. They were reminding us to measure them properly. Here's how to make it practical. The next time you feel your pulse quicken over something trivial, pause and ask, will this matter in 10 years? Better yet, picture yourself as an old man or woman looking back on today. What would that version of you say about what's stealing your peace right now? This isn't nihilism, it's liberation. When you see your life against the backdrop of time, you stop sweating the small stuff and start noticing what truly deserves your energy. Marcus wrote in his private journal, think of the substance of the whole and how fleeting your share of it is. That's the gift of perspective, not to shrink from life, but to live more boldly where it counts. While Seneca exchanged wisdom through letters to his friends, his most profound habit was the one he kept private, his nightly ritual of self-examination. The day is not over until the lesson is learned, he wrote, insisting that no day should slip by without extracting its wisdom. Unlike modern journaling focused solely on accomplishments or gratitude, Stoic reflection had teeth. It wasn't about patting yourself on the back, it was about holding yourself to account. Picture this scene from 2,000 years ago, candlelight flickering as Seneca reviews his day with surgical precision. Where did I act against my values? When did fear dictate my choices? What impressions misled me? Epictetus called this testing your thoughts like coins, scrutinizing each reaction to see if it held real value or was just counterfeit emotion. The goal wasn't self-criticism, but calibration. Fast forward to today, where journals often become lists of completed tasks or forced positivity. The Stoic approach cuts deeper. It's not what went well, but where did I compromise? Not what am I thankful for, but what weakness did I feed? Here's your challenge tonight. Borrow one question from the Stoics. Maybe Marcus Aurelius, what's left undone that only I can do? Or Epictetus, what did I mistake as harm that wasn't? Write it, sit with it, and let it sharpen your tomorrow. Because as Seneca warned, no one is brought back to life the same person. The ink you spill in honesty becomes the wisdom you live by. Death was the Stoics' most ruthless teacher, but also their wisest. The Romans kept skulls on their desks, not as morbid decor, but as visceral reminders, Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. At first glance, that sounds grim, yet hidden in this practice is a surprising key to living fully. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This wasn't about fear, it was about friction. Imagine how differently you'd approach today if you knew it were your last. The meetings you'd skip, the conversations you'd prioritize, the trivial worries you'd discard. That's the power of this seventh method. It strips away procrastination's illusions. The Stoics didn't dwell on death to depress themselves, they used it to clarify. Modern research echoes this ancient wisdom. Studies show that when people confront their mortality, whether through near-death experiences or simple reflection, they report sharper priorities, deeper relationships, and less tolerance for time-wasting distractions. The clock is ticking for all of us, but here's the paradox. Acknowledging that can make time feel expansive, not scarce. So here's your challenge. Carve out 5 minutes today to ask 2 questions. First, if I died a year from now, what would I regret not doing? Second, what am I currently tolerating that a finite life doesn't deserve? Write the answers without filtering them. The Roman philosopher Seneca warned that we often mistake being busy for being alive. Mortality isn't a dark cloud, it's the spotlight that shows you where to walk. Epictetus had a simple but revolutionary idea. Events don't disturb us, our judgments about them do. He called it the discipline of assent, that critical pause between what happens and how we label it. Take something as ordinary as a traffic jam. The cars aren't inherently good or bad, they're just there. But the moment you think this is ruining my day, you've assigned meaning to it, and suddenly your blood pressure rises. The Stoics didn't deny reality, they denied reality's power to dictate their peace. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, take away your opinion about what's happened, and you take away the complaint. That's the core of this 8th method. Life hands you raw facts, a cancelled flight, a critical coworker, a rainy wedding day, but you choose whether to stamp them as disasters or simply as events. Modern psychology backs this up with the concept of cognitive reframing. 2 people can face the same setback. One sees a reason to quit, the other a reason to adapt. The event hasn't changed, the narrative has. Here's your challenge today. Pick one annoyance, maybe a slow checkout line or a noisy neighbor, and consciously refuse to call it bad. Instead, see it as neutral, like weather passing through. Notice how your reaction shifts when you strip away the story. Epictetus trained his students to ask, what's actually within my control here? Not the traffic, not the delay, just your response. And that's where freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius often spoke of building an inner citadel, a mental fortress so strong that no external chaos could breach it. He didn't mean withdrawing from the world, but creating an unassailable space within yourself where logic, virtue, and clarity always held power. Picture a general defending a city. no matter how fierce the siege, there's a central stronghold that never falls. That's what the Stoics aimed to cultivate, a place where fear, opinions, and misfortune couldn't penetrate. Modern psychology calls this psychological resilience, and the parallels are striking. Studies of prisoners of war, disaster survivors, and even elite athletes reveal a common thread. Those who endure best aren't the ones with the easiest circumstances, but those with an unwavering core of values and purpose. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, captured it perfectly. Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Here's where it gets practical. Marcus wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. But building that retreat takes work." Start by asking, what 3 principles are non-negotiable for you? Maybe it's integrity, courage, or compassion, values so deeply rooted that no criticism or setback could make you betray them. Like a citadel's walls, these become your anchors when storms hit. Think of a time you witnessed someone stand firm under pressure, a leader refusing to cut corners, a parent staying patient in chaos. That's the inner citadel in action. Your challenge today, write down those 3 uncompromising values and keep them close, because when everything outside feels uncertain, your fortress within becomes the ground you'll never lose. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, would deliberately dress in shabby clothes, sleep on the floor, and live on nothing but stale bread and water for days at a time. Why? To test a radical question. What if everything was taken from me tomorrow? He called it practicing poverty, not to romanticize hardship, but to disarm its terror. The Stoics knew something modern research now confirms. Our fear of loss is often worse than the loss itself. Think about how much of our energy goes into guarding comforts, upgrading phones before the old ones break, stockpiling backups of backups, chasing promotions just to maintain a lifestyle we barely enjoy. Epictetus put it bluntly, it's not what you have that enslaves you, but your attachment to it. That's the core of this 10th method, deliberately reducing to realize how little you truly need. Minimalism gets trendy, but the Stoic approach cuts deeper. It's not just decluttering your closet, it's decluttering your dependence. When Seneca temporarily gave up his riches, he wasn't proving he could live like a beggar, he was proving his freedom. A man is rich not by what he owns, he wrote, but by what he can walk away from. Here's the modern twist. Comfort is the new wealth, and we're all hoarding it. The real test isn't whether you have luxuries, but whether they have you. Could you work from a library if your home Wi-Fi failed? Enjoy a meal without your phone on the table? Sleep soundly without that third pillow? Your challenge: pick one comfort to remove for 24 hours, skip the coffee, leave your phone in another room, or take the bus instead of driving. Notice the frustration, then notice something else. You're still here, still capable, still you. That's the secret Seneca uncovered. The less you fear losing, the more boldly you can live. Method 11. Turning the obstacle upside down. Marcus Aurelius scribbled a line in his private journal that entrepreneurs and athletes now quote like a battle cry. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first glance, it sounds like stubborn optimism, but the Stoics were after something far more tactical. They called it turning the obstacle upside down, a mental maneuver that doesn't just accept setbacks but weaponizes them. Take the story of a startup founder whose first company collapsed spectacularly. Investors pulled out, the tech failed, and the industry called it a joke. Instead of retreating, he dissected the wreckage and realized the very flaws that doomed his product were clues to an untapped market. His next venture addressed those exact pain points and became a billion-dollar company. What looked like a dead end was actually a roadmap in disguise. Epictetus framed it with piercing clarity. difficulties show men what they are. Adversity isn't just a test of character, it's a spotlight revealing hidden paths. The Romans didn't romanticize suffering, they reverse-engineered it. A shipwreck became a chance to swim. A betrayal, proof of who truly mattered. Even exile, a fate worse than death for ancient elites, was Seneca's catalyst for writing his greatest works. Here's where it gets practical. Your current frustration, the delayed project, the skeptical client, even the personal doubt gnawing at you, holds a latent advantage. The trick is adversarial reframing. Ask, how could this setback actually serve my growth? Maybe the rejection frees you for a better opportunity. The obstacle slowing you down might be forcing you to innovate. Marcus didn't say obstacles vanish when you flip them. He said they become useful. Try this today. Pick one headache from your life, a logistical snag, a criticism, a resource shortage, and write 2 ways it might secretly be helping you. Not as wishful thinking, but as strategic insight, because the barrier you're cursing today could be the foundation you'll thank tomorrow. As the Stoics knew, no wind is unfavorable if you learn how to adjust the sails. Method 12, the discipline of action cleans. One of the great Stoic teachers wasn't just a philosopher. He spent his nights hauling water and kneading dough to pay his way through school. When critics mocked him for doing manual labor, he'd reply, "If digging makes me stronger and thinking makes me wiser, why should I abandon either?" That's the essence of the 12th method. Action isn't just about doing more, it's about doing what aligns with nature. Modern life glorifies busyness-packed calendars, endless notifications, the illusion of productivity. But the Stoics drew a sharp line between motion and purpose. Marcus Aurelius scribbled reminders like, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." B1. Notice the emphasis on being overperforming. It's not about how many tasks you cross off, but whether those tasks cross the threshold of intentionality. Think of a river. It doesn't strain to flow, it simply follows its course. Human nature, too, has a flow. When we act against it, chasing hollow status, clinging to toxic habits, or forcing paths that aren't ours, we feel the friction. But aligned action, it carries a quiet momentum. Marcus put it plainly, the universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it. Tiny, deliberate steps compound into revolutions. Here's your challenge today. Pick one habitual action, maybe your first scroll through social media in the morning, the automatic yes to another meeting, or the way you unwind after work, and ask, does this align with the person I'm becoming? Not with guilt, but curiosity. Cleans didn't haul water mindlessly. He turned it into meditation. Your daily routines are either building you or draining you, no neutral ground. The Stoics knew excellence isn't an accident. It's the sum of actions you've stopped leaving to chance. Method 13. Sympatheia, the web of interconnection. The ancient Stoics had a word for something modern science now confirms. Sympatheia, the profound interconnectedness of all things. Picture a spider's web at dawn. Tug one thread and the whole structure trembles. That's how the Stoics saw humanity, not as isolated individuals, but as strands in a living network. Hierocles, a Stoic philosopher, mapped it out with his famous circles of concern, a series of concentric rings starting with yourself at the center, expanding to family, community, and ultimately all of humanity. His radical idea, we grow by pulling the outer circles closer. Consider ecology. A forest thrives when each tree communicates through hidden fungal networks, sharing nutrients and warnings. Or think of a championship team. No star player succeeds alone. The assist matters as much as the shot. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire with this mindset, writing, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Ambition, in this light, isn't just personal gain, it's a form of service. Here's the challenge. Trace a single action you took this week. Maybe a kindness to a stranger, a project completed at work, even a post you shared online. Now imagine its ripples. The barrister you tipped generously pays it forward. The report you polished inspires a colleague's breakthrough. Epictetus insisted, "You are a citizen of the world and a part of it, not the master." True power lies in recognizing that every choice reverberates. So ask yourself today, how can my ambition lift others as it lifts me, not out of obligation, but because the tallest trees grow strongest when their roots are entwined? Method 14. Contempt for fame. Cato the Younger once walked out of a theater mid-performance as applause thundered through the crowd, not because he disliked the play, but because he refused to let approval dictate his actions. In an age where public opinion could make or break careers, his indifference was revolutionary. Fast forward to today, and we've replaced Roman forums with Instagram likes, political reputations with follower counts, yet the trap remains the same, mistaking visibility for virtue. Marcus Aurelius saw through this illusion. It's silly to refuse praise from others, but absurd to depend on it. Think about that. Needing constant validation isn't just exhausting, it hands control of your self-worth to strangers. The Stoics didn't reject recognition outright, they simply refused to let it steer their compass. A sculptor doesn't ask the clay for approval. Why should your work require applause to matter? Social media didn't invent this hunger, it just monetized it. Every notification taps into ancient wiring, turning "Did people see this?" into a modern-day gladiatorial plea for thumbs up. But here's the paradox the Stoics uncovered. Chasing fame shrinks your freedom, while ignoring it expands your impact. History remembers Cato not because he begged for attention, but because his integrity was unshakable, with or without an audience. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, delete one vanity metric from your life. Turn off likes on your posts, hide the view count on your videos. Stop checking how many people opened your email. Notice what happens when you create for the work itself, not the reaction. Marcus scribbled in his journal, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." Be one, not for the gallery, but for the quiet certainty that you're living by your own code. Because the louder the world screams for attention, the more power lies in those who don't ask permission to matter. Method 15. The art of silence. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once observed that we're given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason: to listen twice as much as we speak. In an era where opinions flood social media feeds and conversations often become competitions for airtime, the Stoics championed something radical: the discipline of silence. Epictetus put it bluntly, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, don't make excuses, just reply, 'He must not know my other faults, or he would have mentioned those too.'" Modern life treats restraint like a weakness, a hesitation to be overcome. We're pressured to have takes on everything, to fill every pause, to broadcast thoughts before they've fully formed. But the Stoics saw silence as a superpower. It's not just about holding your tongue, it's about creating space for deeper understanding, for observing patterns in others, for refining your own words into something worth speaking. Consider how often we speak to soothe discomfort, rambling through awkward pauses, exaggerating stories for laughs, or unloading frustrations without purpose. Contrast that with the Stoic ideal, speech as deliberate as a surgeon's incision. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? Not to suppress your voice, but to ensure it carries weight when it finally breaks through." Here's a challenge that will sharpen this skill. For the next day, observe one conversation without inserting your view. Don't just wait for your turn to talk, listen with full attention. Notice the impulses that arise, the urge to correct, to relate, to impress. The Stoics called this prosoch, mindful awareness of the gap between impulse and action. You'll discover something liberating. Not every thought needs an audience, and silence often speaks louder than words. Epictetus warned, "It's better to trip with your feet than with your tongue." In a world drowning in noise, the rarest gift you can offer to others and yourself is the quiet to think before you speak, because mastery over words begins with mastery over silence. Method 16. Character as legacy. Seneca wrote a letter to his friend Lucilius with a striking question. What does it matter how much you've accumulated if you haven't lived in a way that outlasts you? That's the heart of this next Stoic practice, a shift from chasing achievements to cultivating character so enduring it becomes your true legacy. In an age obsessed with personal branding where LinkedIn bios and Instagram captions scream accomplishments, the Stoics whispered something subversive. Let your virtue speak for you long after you're gone. Think of the difference between a resume and a eulogy. One lists titles and promotions, the other reveals who you were at your core. The Romans called this dignitas, not just reputation, but the weight of a life lived with integrity. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, scribbled reminders like, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one." No one remembers the exact battles he won, but 2,000 years later, we still quote his humility. Here's the modern parallel. We curate our online personas with metrics, followers, sales numbers, viral moments. But the Stoics ask a more piercing question. What will people say about you when the screens go dark? Not how much you earned, but how you made others feel. Not the deals you closed, but the trust you built. Epictetus took it further. If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters. In other words, let others chase applause for superficial wins while you focus on the quieter work of character. Today, that might mean choosing honesty over a shortcut, kindness over clout, or patience over instant validation. So here's your challenge, one that cuts deeper than any career goal. Write your own epitaph in 6 words or less. Not your job titles or awards, but the essence of how you showed up. Could it be, he lifted others as he climbed, or she listened more than she spoke? Seneca urged his students to live as if you were already dead, not morbidly, but to clarify what truly deserves your energy. Because the legacy you're building isn't in your bio, it's in the hearts of those you've touched, and that kind of branding never trends, it endures. Method 17. The lens you choose. Epictetus dropped a truth bomb that still echoes through psychology departments today. It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Let that sink in. A raised hand during your presentation isn't inherently terrifying, it's just a hand. The pounding heart, the dry mouth, that's your story about what that hand means. They're about to expose me as a fraud. But what if you flipped the script? That same hand could signal curiosity, engagement, or even agreement. The event hasn't changed, only the lens you're looking through. Marcus Aurelius sharpened this idea with a mental exercise. The universe is transformation, life is opinion. Picture 2 comedians bombing on stage. One spirals into "I'm worthless," while the other thinks, "Now I've got material for my next bit." Same failure, divergent paths. Modern cognitive therapy calls this cognitive restructuring, but the Stoics were doing it centuries earlier, hacking perception to reclaim power over their emotional weather. Here's where you put it into practice. Take a fear you've coddled, maybe public speaking, rejection, or a looming deadline, and strip it down to bare facts. No adjectives, no drama. Instead of "this speech will humiliate me," try 40 people will hear my words for 7 minutes. Neutral, clean. Notice how the weight shifts when you remove the judgmental packaging. Epictetus trained his students to ask, "What's actually happening here versus what am I adding to it?" That pause between event and interpretation is where freedom lies. Your challenge today, pick one anxious thought and rewrite it like a courtroom reporter, just the facts. Because the moment you stop calling your hurdles monsters, you start seeing them as stepping stones. Method 18. The Stoic pause. There's a tiny gap, fractional, almost invisible, between what happens to you and how you react, and in that sliver of time lies all your power. The Stoics called it proseuche, the discipline of attention, the art of inserting a deliberate pause before emotion hijacks your response. Epictetus framed it as life's ultimate leverage point. Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our destiny. Consider this: two people get cut off in traffic. One leans on the horn, face hot with fury. The other takes a breath and adjusts their grip on the wheel. Same trigger, vastly different outcomes. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics intuited: the amygdala, our brain's alarm system, fires first, but the prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason, can intervene if given time. That's not passivity, it's tactical restraint. Ancient Rome had a version of this in the Tempus Mori, a time of delay senators used before voting on weighty matters. Today, we reply to texts in seconds, fire off emails in frustration, and let algorithms dictate our moods. But what if you weaponize that pause? History remembers the general who stayed calm when ambushed, the leader who didn't flinch at insults. Not because they lacked passion, but because they'd trained their minds to own the gap. Here's your challenge: the next time someone says something triggering, a snide remark, a dismissive comment, freeze for 5 seconds. Count them in your head: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In that silence, ask, will this reaction serve me? Epictetus warned that unchecked impulses are like runaway horses. You're just along for the ride unless you grab the rein. Try it today. The pause won't feel natural at first. That's the point. Mastery begins in the discomfort of restraint, because the difference between a knee-jerk reaction and a chosen response. That's where the Stoics found their freedom, and soon you will too. Method 19. Modeling the sage. Seneca once wrote to his friend Lucilius, "Choose someone whose way of life pleases you, so you may have a standard by which to measure your own." The Stoics didn't just admire virtue, they personified it. They called this practice prokopton, the act of modeling an idealized sage, not to shame yourself for falling short, but to stretch your vision of what's possible. Picture this scenario: you're about to snap at a coworker who took credit for your idea. Then, like an inner compass, the question arises: what would Epictetus do here? Not as guilt-tripping perfectionism, but as a recalibration. The Stoic sage was their North Star, an imagined mentor who embodied unshakable reason, courage, and justice. Marcus Aurelius modeled his life after his teacher Rusticus. Cato studied Socrates like a blueprint. Why? Because progress needs a reference point. But here's the crucial distinction: this isn't about comparing yourself to some flawless hero. Even Seneca admitted he never reached his ideal, but pursuing it shaped him into someone worth emulating. Modern psychology echoes this with the concept of possible selves, the versions of you that exist just beyond your current habits. The gap between who you are and who you admire isn't failure, it's fuel. So here's your challenge: pick one trait from a role model, dead or alive, real or imagined. Maybe it's Marcus's patience under pressure, Epictetus's razor-sharp focus on what he controlled, or a personal mentor's integrity. For the next 30 days, ask at key moments, how would they handle this? Not to mimic them blindly, but to borrow their perspective like a lens, because growth doesn't happen in a vacuum. As Seneca observed, no one stumbles onto wisdom by accident. You become what you repeatedly measure yourself against. So choose your measures wisely and let the best versions of others pull the best version of you into existence. Method 20. Indifference to fortune. Seneca was aboard a ship when the storm hit, waves crushing timber, passengers screaming, everything he owned sinking into the sea. Yet his letter describing the event reads like a victory lap. What was lost was baggage, not myself. That's the heart of this Stoic practice, divorcing your worth from the whims of fortune. Fast forward 2,000 years, and we're still trapped in the same illusion, measuring our value by promotions, possessions, and public validation. But here's the truth the Stoics drilled into their students: externals are indifferent. Not meaningless, but incapable of defining you. Epictetus, born into slavery, framed it with brutal clarity. It's not what happens to you, but how you relate to what happens that determines its power. Consider the modern parallel: a laid-off tech worker who built an identity around a prestigious job title. The initial shock is real, but the Stoics would argue the real suffering comes from mistaking what you have for who you are. The resume isn't the person, the bank balance isn't the soul. History's most resilient figures share this trait: the ability to lose everything but their core. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter on welfare checks. Steve Jobs got fired from Apple only to return with breakthrough creativity. Like Seneca watching his cargo sink, they grasped a radical truth: attachment is the real shipwreck. Here's your challenge today. Grab a pen and list 3 things you currently prize, maybe your salary, social media following, or even physical fitness. Then rewrite them as Seneca might: I enjoy my comfortable income, but it is not me. People engage with my content, but their approval doesn't construct my worth. The goal isn't to abandon ambition, it's to anchor it where storms can't reach. Because the tighter you cling to externals, the harder fortune can yank them away. But what you are, that no wave can touch. Method 21. The shortness of life. Seneca once dropped a line that forces a double take: life is long if you know how to use it. At first glance, it sounds contradictory. How can life be both short and long? But here's the razor-sharp truth buried in those words: it's not about the number of years, but how much of those years you truly own. The average person lives around 30,000 days. Now subtract the hours spent sleeping, commuting, scrolling, or trapped in trivial worries. How much of that time was yours? How much of it slipped through your fingers while you waited for someday? Musonius Rufus put it even more bluntly: of all our possessions, time is the only irrevocable loss. Money can be earned back, reputations can be repaired, but time, once it's spent, it's gone forever. The Stoics weren't morbid about this, they were motivated by it. Seneca wrote entire letters about how people would suddenly value their money if a thief stole it, yet they'd casually waste days as if time were infinite. Here's a wake-up call: track one ordinary day. Count the hours spent on autopilot, the mindless browsing, the passive entertainment, the conversations that left no mark. Then ask yourself, if this day were my last, would I have spent it this way? That's not guilt talking, it's clarity. Your challenge tomorrow is surgical: eliminate one time drain. Just one. Maybe it's the 30 minutes lost to social media right after waking, the hour-long meeting that could have been an email, the late-night show you're not even enjoying, just enduring. Replace it with nothing at first. Sit in the silence, because space is where intention grows. As Seneca warned, you act like mortals in all you fear and immortals in all you desire. Time isn't slipping away, you're handing it away. The difference between a short life and a long one isn't the calendar. It's the courage to spend your hours like currency, not confetti. Method 22. Mastering desire. Epictetus had a vivid way of describing unchecked cravings. Desire is like a dog on a leash. If it learns to drag you wherever it wants, soon you'll be the one being walked. Sit with that image for a moment. How often do impulses for sugar, screens, validation yank you off course before you even realize you've moved? Modern science calls this dopamine hijacking. Our brains wired to chase quick hits of pleasure, leaving us exhausted but never satisfied. The Stoics offered an antidote: not suppression but sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius scribbled a line in his journal that cuts through the noise of consumer culture. Very little is needed to make a happy life. He wasn't preaching poverty. He was exposing the illusion that fulfillment lies in the next purchase, the next promotion, the next like. Every craving whispers the same lie. This time it will be enough. Yet history's most content people, from Buddhist monks to minimalist entrepreneurs, share one trait. They mastered desire instead of letting it master them. Enter dopamine fasting, a modern twist on Stoic discipline. It's not about denying joy forever, but resetting your brain's reward system. Like a palate cleanser between rich courses, it creates space to taste life without constant stimulation. The Roman elite practiced this through voluntary hardship. Seneca fasting for days, Cotto wearing threadbare clothes not as punishment but to prove, I decide what moves me. Here's your challenge. Pick one pleasure: coffee, social media, snacks, and fast from it for 24 hours. Not to suffer but to observe. Notice the tug of habit, the rationalizations just this once, and the quiet strength in saying not now. Epictetus warned, no man is free who is not master of himself. True freedom isn't having every desire fulfilled, it's choosing which desires are worth following. Because the leash only tightens when you forget who's holding it. Today's experiment, that's you taking back the lead. Method 23, the paradox of control. A concert pianist spends months mastering every note. Her fingers tracing scales until muscle memory takes over, her mind rehearsing transitions like a metronome. But the moment she steps on stage, something shifts. She doesn't command the music anymore, she surrenders to it. That's the hidden dance of ambition. Total control in preparation, total release in execution. Seneca captured this duality perfectly. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But here's the twist: preparation is yours to own, the opportunity. That's for fate to decide. The Stoics recognized a truth modern hustle culture often ignores. You can't make success happen, only make yourself ready for it. Obsessing over outcomes is like a farmer tugging at crops to grow faster. It doesn't accelerate results, it destroys them. Yet so much of our anxiety stems from this illusion that if we worry enough, strategize enough, or hustle hard enough, we can force the universe to comply. The paradox: real command comes from letting go at precisely the right moment. Take an archer from ancient times. He could oil his bow, sharpen his arrows, and train his aim to perfection. But once that arrow left the string, wind, timing, even luck played their parts. His job wasn't to control the flight, only the shot. That's the Stoic secret. Focus on your form, not the target. Here's your challenge today. Pick one goal, whether it's a work project, a fitness milestone, or a difficult conversation, and for 24 hours, divorce yourself from the result. Measure progress solely by the quality of your effort. Did you show up fully? Did you give what you could? Seneca warned. You're unhappy because you confuse what's up to you with what's not. The musician doesn't guarantee applause, she guarantees practice. The rest, that's not her music to write. Ambition thrives when you hold the reins tightly in preparation and loosen them gracefully in action. Because mastery isn't about dictating every outcome, it's about trusting your readiness to meet whatever comes. Method 24, Stoic humor. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who carried the weight of an empire on his shoulders, left behind a surprising piece of advice in his private writings. The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy, but an even better one. To laugh at the absurdity of it all. At first glance, it feels counterintuitive. How can humor coexist with the Stoic pursuit of virtue? But here's the nuance most miss. Laughing at life's chaos isn't about dismissing reality. It's about refusing to let reality hijack your peace. Take Democritus, the ancient philosopher known as the laughing sage. While others lamented human folly, he found comedy in it, not mockery, but a gentle acknowledgement of how often we trip over our own expectations. The Stoics didn't preach grim-faced endurance. They practiced a rare kind of wit that disarmed suffering by exposing its theatrics. Imagine a CEO calmly chuckling during a boardroom meltdown, not out of indifference, but because they see the temporary drama for what it is. This isn't toxic positivity, that forced, good vibes only, denial of hardship. Stoic humor is sharper, more subversive. It doesn't pretend the storm isn't real, it just reminds you that you're not the storm. When Epictetus joked about wealthy men being slaves with golden chains, he wasn't minimizing struggle, he was reframing it in a way that loosened its grip. Here's your challenge: pick one frustration today, a delayed flight, a malfunctioning printer, even a passive-aggressive email, and play anthropologist with it. How would a documentarian narrate this scene? What's genuinely absurd about it? Marcus wrote, "How ridiculous and what a stranger he is who is surprised at anything that happens in life." The traffic jam isn't happening to you, it's just happening. And sometimes the healthiest response is to laugh at the cosmic joke, because resilience isn't just about bearing weight, it's about lightening it. And few tools cut through tension like a well-timed smirk at the universe's mischief. As Democritus proved, the philosopher who laughs may just be the wisest one in the room. Method 25. The morning ritual before the sun even crests the horizon. Marcus Aurelius was already at work, not on empire affairs but on himself. In the quiet pre-dawn, he'd write reminders like, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's the essence of this 25th method, transforming those first fragile moments of the day into a forge for intentionality. The Stoics didn't stumble into their days, they designed them. Epictetus put it bluntly: first say to yourself what you would be, then do what you must. Notice the order, identity before action. Most of us reach for our phones and let the world's chaos dictate our mood before we've even chosen who we'll be. But imagine starting instead with a 3-minute ritual where you set the terms. Here's how to make it tangible. 1. Pause before momentum takes over. Sit upright, no screens, no noise, and take 5 deep breaths, not to empty your mind, but to claim it. 2. Ask the pivotal question: who do I choose to be today? Not what you'll do, but how you'll do it. Will you be the person who reacts or responds, who complains or creates? 3. Anchor with a mantra. Borrow one from Epictetus. Today I'll meet interference, ingratitude, and arrogance, but none of them can shake me. Or craft your own. This isn't about positive affirmations, it's about preemptive clarity. Like a general reviewing his battle plan before the fight, you're hardening your resolve against the day's inevitable tests. Studies on morning routines show that even 90 seconds of intentional framing can reduce cortisol spikes and sharpen decision-making. The Stoics simply took it further. They weaponized those minutes. So tomorrow, before the world gets its hands on you, steal back 3 minutes. Not to plan your tasks, but to prepare your character, because the sun will rise whether you're ready or not. The question is, who will it find waiting? Method 26. The evening review as daylight fades and most of us reach reflexively for our phones, endlessly scrolling through headlines and reels. Seneca was practicing something radically different by candlelight. His nightly ritual wasn't about numbing the mind, but sharpening it. The day is not over until the lesson is learned, he insisted, turning bedtime into a classroom. While modern culture glorifies productivity metrics, how many tasks crossed off, how many emails answered, the Stoics measured days by an entirely different standard: virtue. Not what you did, but how you did it. Pythagoras, centuries earlier, had his students ask 3 questions each night. 1. Where did I act against my values? 2. Where did I neglect my potential? 3. What debt of kindness do I owe? Notice the pattern. No tally of achievements, just an honest audit of character. Contrast that with today's default reflection, doom scrolling through the day's chaos, comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reels. The Stoics didn't review to punish themselves, they reviewed to course correct. As Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "The wise man will examine his entire day before sleep claims him, for nothing fosters progress like daily reckoning." Here's your challenge tonight. Put aside your screen for 10 minutes and rate your day, not by output but by the 4 Stoic virtues. Did you act with wisdom in tough decisions? Exercise courage in speaking truth, practice justice in small interactions, show temperance in resisting distractions. Don't just tally wins and losses, ask what each moment taught you. Because the real measure of a day isn't what you checked off, but who you became in the process. As Seneca warned, life slips through our fingers like sand when we forget to weigh it. So tonight, close your eyes not to escape the day, but to claim it. The scroll can wait, your growth can't. Method 27. Crafting your obstacle course. Navy SEAL don't wait for war to test their limits, they build their own battlegrounds. Freezing swims at dawn, weighted marches through sand, sleep deprivation drills, all meticulously designed to simulate the chaos of combat before the first shot is fired. The Stoics operated on the same principle. Epictetus hammered it home. Who exactly do you want to be in a crisis? Then train for it now before the crisis hits. This isn't about inventing suffering, it's about inoculating yourself against life's inevitable shocks. Think of it like a vaccine. You introduce a controlled dose of difficulty to build immunity. The executive who practices public speaking in a noisy cafe isn't just rehearsing a skill, they're conditioning their focus to hold under distraction. The parent who wakes up 30 minutes earlier to meditate isn't just chasing calm, they're fortifying their patience for the day's tantrums. History's most resilient figures all had their own versions of obstacle courses. Theodore Roosevelt, sickly as a child, transformed himself through brutal outdoor regimens. Florence Nightingale tested her resolve in simulated medical emergencies. The common thread: they didn't wait for adversity to find them, they chased it down first. Here's how to make it practical today. Design one micro-challenge. It could be as simple as turning off your GPS and navigating by memory, fasting until noon, or writing your next email with your non-dominant hand. The goal isn't the task itself, it's the mindset shift. Each time you willingly step into discomfort, you rewrite your relationship with it. Epictetus put it bluntly: don't explain your philosophy, embody it. So ask yourself, what's the one skill or strength I want to have on stand by when life gets loud? Then build the drill that will make it second nature. Because the obstacle course you create today becomes the confidence you'll wear tomorrow. Method 28. The Stoics' Diet. Musonius Rufus didn't just train minds, he trained stomachs. While other philosophers debated abstract theories, he insisted that what we eat and how we eat were foundational to virtue. His logic was razor sharp. If we can't govern our appetites, how can we govern our lives? Fast forward 2,000 years, and we've turned meals into multitasking marathons, scrolling phones, inhaling snacks at desks, treating food as fuel rather than a practice in presence. But the Stoics saw eating as a microcosm of self-command. Seneca took it further, warning that temperance isn't starvation, it's sovereignty. In his letters, he described wealthy Romans gorging on exotic dishes only to vomit and feast again, mistaking excess for enjoyment. His rebuttal: do you ask what the proper limit is? Having less than the greedy, more than the desperate. That's the Stoic sweet spot, neither deprivation nor indulgence, but awareness. Modern nutrition science now confirms what Musonius preached: mindful eating improves digestion, reduces overconsumption, and even heightens flavor. But the Stoics weren't counting calories, they were cultivating respect for the body as an instrument of purpose. Here's the challenge that bridges ancient wisdom to your kitchen. Pick one meal this week to eat like a Stoic. No distractions, no rushing, just you, your food, and the simple act of nourishment. Notice the textures, the aromas, the pace of your chewing. Epictetus would call this prosouch attention as discipline, because every bite is a choice, to be ruled by habit or to reclaim a moment often lost to autopilot. Musonius argued that food should be consumed not for pleasure but for strength. Yet in that restraint, paradoxically, lies a deeper satisfaction. When you strip away the noise, even an apple becomes a lesson in gratitude. So put down the phone, silence the TV, and let your next meal be more than consumption, let it be practice. After all, if you can master the table, the boardroom or the chaos of life becomes that much easier to command. Method 29. The last time meditation. Most of us barrel through our days blind to a quiet tragedy, the ordinary moments we don't realize will ache for one day. A Holocaust survivor once described staring at a crust of bread in the camps, promising herself, "If I live, I'll never take a meal for granted again." Decades later, she'd pause before breakfast, whispering thank you to the toast in her hands. That's the power of this 29th Stoic practice, treating the mundane as if it's already memory. Marcus Aurelius framed it with aching beauty. When you kiss your child good night or finish your morning coffee, tell yourself, this might be the last time. Not to dwell in fear, but to draw the sweetness out of life before it slips away. We think we'll remember the big milestones, the promotions, the weddings, but grief's sharpest pangs often come for the unnoticed textures of life. Your father's laugh filling the kitchen, the weight of your dog's head on your lap, even the ache of a long workday that meant you were needed. Modern psychology confirms this paradox. We're terrible at predicting what will truly haunt us with nostalgia. Researchers call it the last time effect, the realization that you can't pinpoint the final time you carried your child to bed or heard a loved one's signature phrase. The Stoics didn't wait for loss to teach this lesson. They rehearsed it daily to amplify joy, not dread. Here's your challenge today. Pick one routine act: washing dishes, walking the dog, sitting in traffic, and for 60 seconds pretend it's the last time you'll ever do it. Feel the warmth of the water, notice the rhythm of breath as you walk, absorb the hum of the engine. Not to mourn, but to meet life as it actually is, fleeting and fiercely beautiful. Because the greatest wealth isn't in acquiring more, but in seeing what's already here with clear eyes. As Marcus wrote, perfection of character is this: to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy or apathy, just love for what you've been given. That crust of bread, that ordinary Tuesday, that unremarkable moment you'll one day miss like air, it's all still here for now. Method 30. The infinite game picture. Two chess players locked in battle. One obsesses over checkmate, the immediate win. The other plays for mastery, knowing every match sharpens their skill for the next. That's the Stoic distinction between finite and infinite games. Finite games have clear winners and in points, promotions, awards, profits. Infinite games, they're about staying in the game, growing wiser, kinder, more resilient, long after the trophies tarnish. Seneca put it in stark terms: life's not a possession to be hoarded, but a capacity to be perfected. Modern culture glorifies finite wins, quarterly earnings, follower counts, viral moments. But history remembers the infinite players: Marcus Aurelius, whose private journals outlasted his empire; Epictetus, who turned exile into enduring wisdom; entrepreneurs who built companies to outlive them, not just enrich them. The irony: chasing finite goals often leaves you empty. Playing the infinite game, that's where purpose lives. Take a tech founder who sells their startup. The money matters, but not as much as the answer to, what will this enable me to become? A legacy isn't built on transactions, but on the values woven into every decision. The Stoics called this arete excellence of character as the ultimate scoreboard. Seneca wrote, As long as you live, keep learning how to live, not what to achieve, but how to evolve. Here's your final challenge, one that ties all 30 methods together. Define your philosophical why. Not your 5-year plan, but the lifelong thread you want running through every chapter of your life. Is it to leave people better than you found them? To master resilience regardless of circumstances, to create more than you consume, write it in ink. Then, when finite goals tempt you to compromise, let that infinite purpose whisper, "This isn't the game you're really playing." Because ambition burns brightest when it's fueled by something no setback can extinguish. The medals fade, the wisdom doesn't. The choice is yours. Are you here to win a race or to keep running, growing, and lighting the way long after the finish lines blur? As Seneca reminded us, life is a play. It's not its length, but its performance that matters. So ask yourself, what's your starring role in the infinite game? Conclusion: the alchemy of ambition. What if everything you've ever wanted, the resilience, the clarity, the unshakable command of your life, wasn't about waiting for inspiration, but about installing a system? These 30 methods aren't just scattered tools, they're a forge. Each one, from the premeditation of adversity to the practice of voluntary discomfort, from the nightly reckonings to the infinite game, interlocks like gears in a timeless machine for self-renewal. The Stoics didn't just stumble upon greatness, they engineered it through daily, deliberate practice. Here's the secret most miss: ambition doesn't wilt under discipline, it thrives. Marcus Aurelius left us a clue in his private writings. The obstacle is the way. At first, it sounds like stubborn optimism, but dig deeper. Every hurdle you've cursed, every setback that felt like a detour, was actually the path itself. The frustration of a delayed project, that's patience in training. The criticism that stung, raw material for thicker skin. The discomfort of rising early or fasting. Proof you're no longer a slave to cravings. What looks like resistance is the curriculum. Now, the invitation. Don't just admire these methods, activate them. Pick one, just one, for the next 30 days. Let it be your lens. Maybe it's the nightly review where you dissect your day with surgical honesty, or the cold shower that reminds you comfort is a cage you can step out of. Even the last time meditation where you savor ordinary moments as if they're already memories. The key isn't perfection, it's repetition. As Seneca wrote, luck is what happens when preparation meets persistence. Your turn. Comment below with the method you're committing to, and watch what happens when you stop hoping for change and start building it brick by stoic brick. Because the most powerful transformations don't come from grand gestures, but from daily, quiet revolutions. So tell us, which of these 30 will you wield first? The obstacle and the opportunity are waiting. Click here to subscribe for more deep dives into timeless wisdom, and let's engineer your next breakthrough together. Until then, memento audia semper, remember always to dare.